Both Star Wars and LEGO are colossal franchises.
Hey motherfucker, what do we say about long intros?
No,
Don't do them! I'm here to rob your house, and if you do a long intro, I'm gonna rob your fucking house!
Won't do an intro, no context, everybody knows what the hell those things are, I get it. Okay.
What a fucking go? What a fucking go? What a fucking go?
We've talked about Amaze Entertainment twice before on the channel. The first time was LEGO Star Wars 2 DS, which was a broken mess of a port. The second time was Bionicle Heroes DS, which was actually very technically competent, well designed, well put together, and showed the studio really knows its mettle when put in the right circumstances. A lot of you guys suggest that I check out the GBA version of LEGO Star Wars 2, and I've received conflicting reports. Some believe it's much worse, some believe it's significantly better than the DS version. Without further ado, let's boot this baby up and see for ourselves. One thing that should be obvious is that this game isn't going to be in 3D. Like the conversion of the first game, this is an isometric action game that uses a 2D viewport to simulate a 3D space. It's a clever technique that actually sells the effect really well, with the concession of feeling a little less visually dynamic. It also uses pre-rendered 3D for the backgrounds, some as modular repeated tilesets, and some as fully rendered out environmental set pieces. This was a common tactic in old RPGs such as Fallout or Baldur's Gate, and even the odd PlayStation platformer like the Oddworld games. Probably the most famous recent use of that technique was the indie game series Five Nights at Fine, I get it, shut up, I got it. Overall, I'd say the presentation actually trumps the DS version here. Corridors and interiors look absolutely fantastic, and are a far more accurate representation than whatever the hell we got on the DS. Unfortunately, this effect does fall apart a little in the outdoor areas, but I'll be touching on that later in the video. It can also be difficult to find your way about sometimes too. Often different height levels aren't clearly indicated, looking like a faraway room instead of a sheer drop downward, due to the inherent lack of depth perception that comes with flattened isometrics, when compared to a dynamic multi-point perspective. There also isn't much signposting in levels either. Expect to crawl some repeating labyrinths without any indication of what direction is the main route, or a side route, or somewhere you've already been. Impressively, most of the time the game can actually dump a lot of AI against the player. You could be fighting like 8 guys at once, and they could be ruthless too. I can't even count how many times I entered an area just to be taken out by 6 blasters at the same time, executioner style. Unfortunately, fighting these dudes gets old pretty damn quick, basically running in a straight line, shooting as fast as you can, hoping you land the shots. Even lightsaber combat is extremely one note. Keep swinging and use a jump attack to crowd control, rinse, repeat. Admittedly, LEGO Combat was extremely rudimentary for years, and years, but in this version you're going to be doing a lot more fighting than puzzle solving and exploring. Interestingly, a couple of minor combat abilities have been added. For example, some characters have a blaster charge like Samus, and Jedi characters can do the patented and ever badass lightsaber throw. Then again, there's never really many opportunities to use these effectively. Boss battles are pretty much all a case of, press the lightsaber button faster than the computer anyway. If you've cleared a room too and you come back after leaving, expect to do pretty much everything again. This is likely to do with the GBA having a minimal amount of RAM to keep tabs on everything happening in a level, but backtracking and double checking the world around you can be absolutely exhausting, especially when some of these entrance points are so brutal. Mini-kits are often just given to the player without much effort too. Check out this pathetic display on top of Jabba's barge. Seriously, make me work a little for these. Or if the levels aren't big enough to accommodate, be brave, deviate, make me get a smaller amount of kits instead. As well as the mini-kits being more or less donated to the player up front, the true Jedi bar is super easy to cheese because of the aforementioned problem with runes resetting. Fortunately, this also includes a lot of destructible stud-spewing structures to come back to life. That is, of course, if you can be bothered to grind whilst on a story playthrough, otherwise the free play bonuses should raise you up to par. So the actual game design loop of the game is bare bones, and a cheap approximation of what TT did with the original console games. However, on the technical side of the fence, this version actually impresses and surprises. Not only is this port pretty to look at, but it also got a couple of belly chuckles out of me in the process with the short time I spent with it. The original versions of the game had the challenge of telling a Star Wars story, entirely without dialogue, using props, physical comedy, and basic grunts to convey a litany of classic scenes, and pulled this off extremely well. The DS version also tried to do this, but really missed the mark. In the GBA version, however, the unique challenge is presented in that they're working with an extremely limited pool of character animations, so most of the story is conveyed through these tiny thought icons. Some say limitation breeds potential, and this is the case where I can definitely see it. Sometimes scenes are admittedly completely nonsensical and would appear outright absurd to anyone going in who hasn't seen the films. But why would you play this without watch? Never mind. Take the trash compactor scene for example. This was incredibly boring and confusing to sit through, and added nothing to the experience, and it lasted for ages. In fact, we should have had a puzzle to solve or something, like in the other versions. Elsewhere though, the storytelling is accurate. The cantina scene deserves some props for this very important detail. Although it is a little weird, the only dudes in here are Jawa and a Gamorrean god. Seriously, where is Mr. I don't like you? Or his good friend, I don't like you either. There are some scenes though that are so oversimplified and minimalistic that I lost my shit. The destruction of Alderaan is something beautiful to behold. The tone is dissonant, intentional, and absolutely delicious. Admittedly, they reused this joke a couple times, but it stays pretty funny each time. You probably have a good idea about how I feel about this port by now. It's technically impressive, but it's kind of a drag to play. That was until I got to Endor. Dear God, I got to Endor. Endor is a sprawling mess that runs at single-digit frame rates. Earlier I mentioned that the presentation falls apart a bit outdoors, and the Endor levels highlight this perfectly. Not only is there no visual landmarks to let you know where you are, but you'll also often come across layering issues with the plants, entire tile sets and chunks of the worlds that are obviously mirrored at the seam, off-putting broken tiles, all running abysmally as enemies come at you from all sides. Look, I got a lot of shit for not mentioning Endor on the DS version, okay? This is me making up for it. Thankfully, Return of the Jedi does rein us back in with a decent enough Death Star assault, and a visually enticing battle against Pizza Sheev. Before rolling credits and wrapping the story mode up at under 2 hours. Whilst there is a lot of replayability in the free play sections, as is customary for any LEGO game, I found myself completely lacking motivation. As much as I have praise for a lot of the environments, the presentation style means most characters feel exactly the same, without really getting to see them up close. I did do the customary tradition. I bought Yoda, but he dies a silent death. While there's plenty of extras to aim for, I didn't find myself motivated enough to invest in my save file. I was content with a short playthrough. So there we have it. Proceed with caution, but it's not too bad of a portable conversion. I've played far, far worse, the same series nonetheless. Let me know though, what memories do you have with this version, if you have any, and are there other weird versions of games that you want me to check out? Until next time, thanks to everybody who's come along, both old and new, and I'll see my dead Yoda Society. That's my following's name. Dead Yoda Society. I'll see you on the next episode of Dubious D, when I return, hopefully within the same month. But boy, is that a privilege to behold! I'm inconsistent. Thanks to everyone who convinced me to check this one out and voted in the community poll. Keep an eye out for my posts. I finally got access to this feature and I'm itching to post hella updates to it soon. I just said the word hella in 2020. I think that's actually punishable by death.